And we are a go. So, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. The purpose of this time together is to talk about the senior year, how to get prepared for the senior year, and what steps our current juniors should be taking. I'm delighted to introduce a couple of people to you right now. One of them is Michelle Walsh, and Michelle's going to give a wave. And Michelle is one of our counselors here at the high school, and then myself, Leslie Smith. And then we have our guest speaker who's going to kick us off, and that is Director of Admissions, Chris Richards, who also lives in Herman and has children in the Herman School District. So it's really kind of special, and we're really glad to welcome you, Chris. And we're going to let you take it from here. We're going to begin with Chris. Sorry, I am home and my dogs are here. We're going to begin with Chris, and then we're going to turn to Herman High School specific information. So take it away, Chris.
All right. Well, thank you, Leslie, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This is a first for me. I've never done this presentation virtually as well, so this is going to be a developmental experience, I guess, for all of us. So as Leslie said, I'm actually the director of admissions at the University of Maine, but that's really not my role here anyway tonight. Is I'm hoping to offer some general insights to all of you to the best of my ability and how you should start this process and things to think about. And also I'm home with my dogs as well. And so you may get some background noise here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can figure this out. And everyone, can you all see that? Do you see that, Leslie? Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is go through some tips. I will say sometimes it can be hard for parents and students to know kind of where to start or am I prepared or, whatever. And I think I would like to just say the fact that you are here, like listening to this information, you are ahead of the game. You really are. I can't tell you how many students that I deal with during their senior year. It's even happening now. I'm getting phone calls from people who are just starting this process. And so the fact that you're inquiring about this information, please ask questions. Don't hesitate. I'm happy to answer anything about UMaine or just college in general. But for you students in the room, I'd really think the best thing you can do is start with a self-assessment. Really, what are your likes and dislikes? What are your goals, your values, your aspirations? And have a real frank assessment with what kind of student are you currently? That can be at times challenging to really think about that and have that real look at who you are and what you want to do. You don't necessarily have to know that I want to be exactly this job or career when, after I graduate, but maybe some type of interest. I know I want to do something where I help people, or I know I want to do something where I'm involved in engaging with nature or whatever it is. But start that self-assessment so you can begin to filter through colleges and universities that will have similar values to that, or will at least have the opportunity for you to be that within that campus culture. Also, that frank conversation about, what kind of student are you currently and what are the admissions standards on average for the schools you're looking at? Because it is a competitive process and how competitive it is varies institution to institution. But those are some key, I guess, first questions that I would encourage all the students to really start there. Take a look at yourself, what you want to do before you start thinking about, I want to be this far from home or this close to home or a school this size or whatever. Really think about you and really where you are at. And then think about when you imagine going to college, what do you see? What would be the ideal vision for you? Are you doing a bunch of chants and cheering on at an athletic event? Are you in a science lab? Maybe are you out in the forest working in forestry programs? Are you studying to be a nurse and you're doing clinical rotation? Are you serving on an ambulance corps? Whatever it is, really reflect on that. And I think this is a key mindset for students to have, is that making sure wherever you go will accomplish that goal of what you envision your college experience being. This is going to be a massive investment in terms of money, but really, even I would argue more so time. The growth and development and experience you have from 18, 19 to 22, 23 years old, which is kind of the typical timeline we may be talking about for students here looking to pursue a bachelor's degree, is some of the most profound and significant growth and development you're going to make in your life. And investing in going to college, I really want to encourage students to look at it like that, to go to college to not just get a degree, but to get much more than that. And you want to really do your homework. And it's why I commend you all for taking the time this evening to come here and start this process, so you can get some tips on how you can figure out, is this going to be everything you want it to be? Are you going to be in a place you belong? I work at UMaine. I'll say it is also the institution I went to. I'm originally from the town of Dixfield, Maine. Some of y'all may have no idea where that is, but I graduated with like 70 kids in my senior class, and we all knew way too much about each other, and no one ever lived anything down, and et cetera, et cetera. And when I went to UMaine, at first I thought I was going to know everyone, and it was a school I knew because it was here. And to say I was so wrong, and it ended up being more than I ever could have expected. It became my home, and I haven't left yet. And I'm blessed to have graduated from college with a place that, it's not just a place I went to school, it's kind of a part of who I am. And I really want that for all of you out there, regardless of where you go to school. Certainly, I selfishly would hope everyone goes to Maine, but I really want all Maine students to have that full, complete, overflowing, and fulfilling experience from their years in school. And so that really brings up, I think, the biggest question that I get, today is it worth it? Is the money worth it? The sacrifice worth it? The time worth it? And I think this is also a real honest conversation that students need to have with themselves. It is worth it, assuming certain things. If you're going to go to a college or university and you're going to participate full bore, you're going to take your studies seriously, you're going to get involved outside the classroom, you're going to join clubs and organizations, and you're going to look at every day on campus as an opportunity to have a new experience, meet someone new. I can tell you that my life as I know it now is a result of extremely random, and at the time, what seemed like insignificant encounters I had on a random day. I'm the director of admissions at Maine, but I've worked in the same department professionally, I guess, since I was a sophomore in college, because a buddy of mine randomly suggested I should pursue getting a job as a campus tour guide. So I've literally worked in the admissions office at Maine since I was 19 years old, which is crazy. And I took that job because I thought I'd make a little spending money. I'd walk around a lot. It helped me sort of stay in shape. And I thought it would help me make friends and just meet people. It was that simple. But that really was the entry job to what is now my career. And that type of experience can happen on any given day. One of the groomsmen at my wedding, I met sophomore year in Chem 122 lab. And the only reason we met was because my pre-assigned lab partner and his pre-assigned lab partner both happened to drop the class 2 days before it started. So we ended up put together. And he's one of those friends who became more like family. And so if you're going to go to a school, you should graduate with a degree. You should graduate with a resume. You go to get an education, not just a diploma. And there's so much that getting an education can mean. You should develop socially, professionally. You should graduate with a network of future potential colleagues and peers, and the relationships that 10 years from now will be the most important ones in your life. What's exciting about this is there's a good chance you haven't met those people yet. And we're talking about a chapter in your life where you will meet them. We just had Accepted Student Day on campus this past Saturday. And the reality is that like some of those students don't know it, but their like future best friend or spouse was in the room together and they just don't know it yet. And that's what's so cool about it. So it is worth it if you're going to take it seriously, if you're going to leverage the time on campus, if you're going to take advantage of all the resources that are available to you, because there's a very good chance that, particularly if you're smart in the selection of the school, you'll never be able to fully take advantage of every opportunity that is available to you, that you won't be able to do everything, and you'll graduate fulfilled and changed and ready for the real world in a way that you never otherwise would have been. If you're going to go to college and just play video games all day and not go to class, and you're just going to go because you feel like you should, I don't know if it is worth it. And I answer that very frankly, because this is a serious thing, and it can be one of the best chapters in your life. But again, that's that self-assessment that all students really need to make for themselves. When I hear, is it worth it? So it really depends on a student's motivations, what they want to do, and how seriously they plan to take this experience. Now, some key factors. These are just some items, but I will tell you right now, the reasons that I hear students pick colleges baffle me all the time. I had a student one time tell me that what really sold him at UMaine was he went to the Union on a random Thursday and the buffalo chicken wrap was the best he'd ever had. And he just couldn't imagine not eating those every day. And that's why he was at Maine. So I was like, all right, cool. Seemed like a crazy reason to me, but everyone makes this decision, from their own perspective. But I'd say these are some of the biggest factors that typically come into place: location, size. I would say the things I think are most important are particularly program of interest. And that may mean programs in your perspective. So if you're a student who, I'm not sure exactly what I want, but I'm kind of interested in business, but I also have a passion for performing in theater. And I don't know, maybe I want to do engineering. Those are very different academic programs. And so if you're a student that's like that, I'd encourage you to make sure you're looking at maybe a slightly larger institution that offers the diversity of programs so you could explore all of that at one location. If you're dead set on, I want business, only business, and maybe you are comfortable going to maybe a smaller, more focused business-oriented school. But make sure the academic program that you want to pursue is offered at the institution. I don't care how good the sandwiches are in the Union. Look at the campus culture. Look at the surrounding area. When you think location, if you're someone who loves the outdoors and you think about spending weekends doing recreational experiences outside in nature, you probably don't want to look at an inner city school. But if you're a student who is interested in doing things such as you want to be on Broadway every weekend, then you probably should be looking at an inner city school. And those types of things really come into it. And we're going to talk a little bit about cost as well. Don't automatically get shocked by a sticker price at an institution. I really encourage students to go and apply to all the schools that are on their radar, submit the necessary financial information on time, and then make sure you actually get that information before you make your decision, because There are very competitive scholarship programs out there for institutions, and you may be surprised at how affordable what is an expensive school, at least at the tuition and fee rate, what that actually might mean for you out of pocket. You might be surprised. If you guys can actually just excuse me for 1 second, my dog is flipping out right now, Leslie. So I just need like a 2 second intermission. I apologize.
No problem. That's the risk we take when we try this virtually. Typically, we've done this in the auditorium, folks, and our attendance hasn't been great the last few years, and we thought maybe virtually would be a good option to record it as well for families. So, what I'm really excited about Chris's next kind of conversation is what to do next, what you should be doing right now. And that is exploring colleges and looking at scholarships. And we're going to talk about all of those things tonight. But those are especially important as we look forward.
I was just going to add in that I know it's pretty close to April break, but there are a lot of colleges and universities that host open house programs during April vacation week. UMaine is one of them. Hassan has a program. So if you have colleges that you're interested in, it might not, and you have no plans for April break, it might not be a bad idea just to take a look at the websites of some of the schools you're looking at that may be within a day's driving distance to go take a peek at.
All right, I'm back. Sorry.
No problem.
I apologize. Um, One thing I would say when I think about resources that students can use, these are some suggestions. Um, and I'm not going to say this just because they treat me really well and I get to see them often, but Herman is uniquely positioned in having very engaged professionals that do this work to support students. So like take advantage of that. Take advantage of schools coming to, if you have schools that might be visiting your high school, take advantage of that. I also talk about, there are a couple things that I actually think came out of COVID that are a good thing. And I would say one of those is the virtual opportunities to experience colleges and universities. The amount of investment and creativity and work in delivering content for students to experience universities virtually, what's been done the past few years is greater than all of higher education prior combined. And I see it at our own institution where we have students from all 50 states. And I know that's because the random kid from New Mexico can actually get on our website and see what it really might be to be here. And you have that access at your own fingertips. So leverage those because that's a billion times what it used to be. If you have the opportunity to connect with someone who's at the school, that could be one of your best assets as well. They're going to give you the tour route that probably that might not be on the best sidewalk that was just redone, or that makes sure that it only goes by the best flower potting plants that are on the campus. I'm sure that many of you all, if I were to ask, would say that you're already getting kind of unsolicited college marketing material, and you probably have a basket in the corner of the room you might be throwing it in. It's like trash purgatory because you're not sure you're going to look at it, but you don't know why you're hanging on to it, that type of thing. That's going to happen. And so remember that everything you see, every website, whatever, it is still a marketing opportunity. So really dive in and get the nitty gritty any way you can. If you visit our website, it looks like it's the end of September, early October, peak foliage 24/7, and it's always bluebird sky and sunny. And we all know that is not necessarily the case. So get as much information as you can. If you're going to attend a college fair, it's a great idea. If you're going to do a campus tour, I have some tips for that as well that I'll share. I think a campus tour during the academic year on like a random weekday is one of the best ways to really get the experience of what it's like to be a student at that institution. That can be a challenge with school and work and whatever for families. I get that. So you might need to do an open house on a weekend. You might need to do a summer visit, whatever. But if you can do an in-session campus tour at every school you're looking at, that would be my best recommendation. And if at all possible, if you really want to get a pulse on a university, have a meal on campus, like just you and your parents or whomever you're going with, because you'll overhear students talking about, and you'll hear whether or not they like the administration or not, or what's exciting on campus or what might be problematic on campus. You'll hear that. Oh. And so, just think about those things before you go and try to get the most realistic experience. You may be surprised if you come to UMaine on a random weekday, you'll be like, where is everyone? There's no one here. But if you sit on the mall, all of a sudden, 10 to the hour, all classes let out, and there's people everywhere. So that's something I suggest. Take advantage of the in-person college visit. That is really the best thing, how you can determine fit. And I will tell you, the campus tour you take where you actually maybe hate an institution or you're let down or you're disappointed because you might have had high, preconceived notions about it, you had high hopes. That visit is as important as the one that you visit a campus and you fall in love with it. I can tell you from my perspective, UMaine, I'm embarrassed to say this now, it was not my top choice school. It was distant on my radar. And I can honestly say that the school I thought was number one, I went and toured it, and we got to the parking lot actually, and I was like, we don't even need to go on this tour. I'm not going here. We did go on the tour, and it was wonderful. They did great, but it wasn't for me. And I didn't even apply to the institution. And then I toured UMaine sort of begrudgingly because I thought I knew everything about it. And on the ride home was like, I can't wait to get back in the fall because that's where I'm going. And this just kind of touches upon what I just said. Speaking with current students as much as possible, I can't emphasize it enough. Admissions professionals such as myself, great resource, but really students that were there, they're going to be your potential peers. They're the current kind of consumers of the product that is that institution. That's who you want to talk to as much as possible if you can. I will say, if you may have the opportunity to do an interview at an institution. It's not super common, but if you do, know something about the institution before you go. If you were going to come to UMaine, for instance, and you wanted to do an interview, maybe you wanted to share something about your academic record that you want us to know when we read your application. Students that demonstrate interest, they're going to maybe have a question or know something about the program. I'll tell you, for me, if you show up on campus and you want to talk college hockey and you have a meaningful take on who should have been the Hobey Baker Award winner this year, you're probably going to have a friend for life. And so know something about the culture and take charge of your college visit. This is going to be, at this chapter in your life, probably one of, if not the largest and most significant decisions you will have made so far. And so it is so exciting, how these things unfold and what it can look like for you if we get this decision right on the front end. Now, juniors, I'll say, you're coming on the time when you're going to be applying to institutions. This process really, in terms of applying, Common App is most common, but you may have institutions that have institutional applications, but the Common App is kind of this third-party service that you can apply to a ton of colleges and universities without having to do an individual app for everyone. So if any parents have never done this before, I think that we're at a point, honestly, at UMaine I mean, we're 97 or 98% of our applications are coming in via Common App now. And it is the most common, but you could apply to us, UMass, UNH, et cetera, multiple states, many colleges and universities, and do one application. A big thing, if you take anything away from tonight, I would say is just deadlines in this process are essential. This can seem daunting, it can seem intimidating, but I would say we're hoping that we can segment things into steps and kind of have chapters, starting now through your senior year. So you have an idea of a timeline of what you should be doing when. But deadlines in the application process can have massive, massive consequences. Missing deadlines might mean access to certain programs might not be an option. You might miss out on the opportunities for merit money and scholarship dollars to support you at that institution. And they can be pretty hard deadlines. I could tell you, for instance, right now, we've hit a point in our cycle, we have stopped admitting any new applicants to nursing. So if a senior right now decided, oh, crap, I want to apply to UMaine for nursing next fall, we are not going to admit them, period. We're done for next fall. And so know those. The two biggest types of deadlines that I think families should have on their radar are going to break down into two categories. I'd say application deadlines and FAFSA filing deadlines. And so one of those is about applying, one of those is about financial aid. And I'll start with application deadlines. You'll hear two terms pretty common out there. You'll hear early decision deadline. You may hear an early action deadline. You could also hear something like a rolling admission deadline. Those are really what those mean. Rolling admission typically means we're going to read applications as they come in, first come, first serve, and we just kind of roll through the cycle. Early decision, what that will mean if you see that, you'll typically see these at highly selective private institutions. It's actually a binding contract. And so what that will mean is you'll see it, and it'll be early. It might be September 1st. It might be September 15th, October 1, early in your senior year, that certain institutions will have an early decision deadline. And what that means is that by you submitting your application to them that early during that process, you're in a binding agreement that if admitted, you will attend that school. Okay. Which some people may say, well, why would anyone do that? Well, if you want that institution and you want to demonstrate, to the best of your ability that, yeah, I'm committed, I want to come there above all else, then you should then go ahead and do that. If you're a student who's like, well, that might be one of my options, but I'm really not sure. I want to apply to a number of schools and sort out financial aid and then kind of confirm in the month of April, right before May 1st, which is normally like the confirmation deadline. May 1 is like this national decision day. So this is a crazy time of year for people like me. But if you want that process of having months to think this over, then don't apply early decision to an institution. If you hear a term early action, then what that typically means is it will be a date that is set by an institution where they can offer applicants certain benefits. So for instance, at Maine, we have a December 1st early action deadline, and I would tell every student, apply to UMaine by December 1st. It's not binding. You're not locked into the school whatsoever. However, you're going to get benefits of, we've actually eliminated all application fees, but that's pretty common. A school would, will waive an application fee if you apply early action. You may have a guarantee of a decision turnaround time frame. At UMaine, for instance, your merit eligibility could be thousands more by applying by December 1st versus after December 1st. You may find certain things, programs, highly selective and competitive programs at various institutions, especially things like nursing or engineering programs. They may want you to apply by that deadline because, for instance, if you want nursing at Maine and you meet qualifications, you apply by December 1, I guarantee you'll be admitted. Like we can say that to students. Once you get past deadlines such as that, typically things become more competitive, first come, first served, and opportunities may fall off the table. But my biggest suggestion I typically would say to families and students, if you're looking at a number of institutions, you know you're not going to pursue early decision out of school. Look at all these application deadlines, do the Common App, apply on time for the earliest one on your radar, and you're good to go. Schools, what they're going to be looking at, it can vary institution to institution. But make no mistake, nothing is going to carry more weight than your academic record. That is going to be number one, no matter where you go. So it's not just your GPA, it's the courses you've taken, the rigor you've pursued, how you've handled that, what are the trends within your grades. If you're a student who maybe had a bad semester, but you've been strong before and strong since, like don't fret about that. But I will tell you that, the work you do at the end of your junior year and also the beginning of your senior year is some of the most important on your record, because that's going to be the most recent will have occurred when schools are looking at your application. Letters of rec. A few tips for that. I really would suggest you to put some thought into who you ask to write these. And I would urge you and frankly beg you to ask them early in the process. The best recommendation letters are typically individuals who can speak to your academic strength, your academic abilities, your academic promise, as well as your character. If you have individuals that can really speak to both of those things, that can be a very compelling letter of recommendation. And as I said, give them time to do that. I'm going to tell you a little story. When I applied to college, I can remember walking up to the principal at my high school on my way out of the school of Darrigo High, literally in the hallway, stopping by the office and asking the principal to light me a letter of rec on my way out of the school at the end of the day for Thanksgiving break. Now, I just told you UMaine has a December 1st early action deadline. So you can imagine the amount of time I was giving him to get that letter of recommendation done. Bless his heart, he did get it done. And he also offered me a few minutes of passionate mentorship on how that's not how you should do things in life. So give them some time, because you want people who are going to genuinely sit down and write you a real, individual, and authentic letter. Essays, take time with these. These can vary from school to school big time. Some schools, essays might be optional. Some schools, they may have programs that they're optional, and other there's required. Some programs at an institution, they might have supplemental writing samples. For instance, our nursing program at Maine requires a couple of additional essays beyond the standard one on the Common App. So really look at those and put some thought into that. Writing samples are the opportunity for you to introduce like the humanistic portion of who you are and what you're all about to a whole bunch of letters and numbers that colleges are looking at to determine your eligibility for admission at their school. So think about that. Write something real, something from the heart. I can tell you that so many students I know struggle with this because they're like, I don't have anything to say. There's nothing unique about my life. And that's just nonsense. That we as people tend to take for granted the things that make us the individuals that we are. And I'll never forget one of the best essays I've ever read. I'll never forget this student. She was applying to nursing, and she was a very strong student, super involved in cheering, like crazy cheering, travel cheering and national tournaments and all this stuff. And she wrote this essay called Raising Kids. And this essay, she's going on and on about she has 3 kids. And I'm like perplexed by this, how this young lady is doing all this stuff, raising 3 children and this and that. And she's talking about her kids and them crying at night and feeding her kids and, on and on and on. And then it's just mind-boggling. I'm reading it. I couldn't wait to I couldn't read it fast enough. And she's talking about the lessons she's learned from raising kids and this and that. And then at the end, the hook at the end of the essay was, I never knew how much I'd learn about life the day that my father and I started our mini goat farm. And if anyone knows, a baby goat is called a kid. And that's what the whole essay had been about, was her raising these 3 baby goats on their little goat farm. And I will never forget that essay. I made all my staff come and read it because we were laughing about it. And it literally halted the entire file review process at the University of Maine for about an hour so everyone could read that essay. So that was an essay about a goat farm. So really take some time, think about your essay, and tell your story. Application fees, just do your research on them. They vary from school to school. I may have mentioned earlier, we've eliminated them from our process entirely, got rid of that barrier for families. But some schools may have some lofty application fees. So just know that, check that, maybe pursue waivers. You may find that some colleges and universities might waive your application fee if you actually visit and go on tour. So that might be part of when you time your visit. Make sure we do this before we apply. So that's a little tip for that. In terms of testing, the SAT or the ACT, if there's an area of college admissions that is the Wild West right now, I think it's testing. Out of COVID, many institutions went test optional, and some schools have started to bring them back. My best tip for you all, leverage the resources you have here with the team and your college advising office that's putting this event on tonight, because and get the nitty-gritty of what testing at that institution means. They may be optional, but does optional mean you use them if you have them? Does it mean you don't use them for admission decisions, but you might use them for merit scholarship decisions? Are they optional for some programs, but required for others? So just get the answer to what that means at the schools that you're looking at, and act accordingly. I could say at Maine, we are test optional with what I would call a no harm test practice. What that means is that if you were to apply and send a set of test scores and your transcript was really strong, and maybe your SAT score was not up to the same level that your transcript is, we will never allow a set of test scores to negatively impact a student's decision on admissibility, invitation to the honors college, or their merit scholarship. So if you had a rough test and you sent it, we aren't going to use it whatsoever. We'll act as if it's not there and base the entire decision on your academic record. So testing cannot hurt someone at UMaine, but we use them for hardly anything at all. But that's just us. And then interviews, typically optional, most commonly encouraged for students, I may have mentioned earlier, who feel that they need to explain something. You might see my second year in high school, my grades were really low. I had a health concern or whatever. If you feel there's something you really want to ensure is expressed, and you have the opportunity to explain and share context to that, that may be an ideal opportunity for an interview at a college or an institution that you're interested in. So you've applied, you've been admitted, and what do you do from there? So typically you're applying in the fall, you're getting your admissions offers in the late fall, winter, maybe very early spring. And really, you're encouraged to make a decision by May 1st as a general guideline. Why that date matters is colleges and universities, we kind of abide by this set of professional practices where we are obligated to, we put all these offers of admission and merit offers on the street. We have to honor those until the end of the day, May 1st. And then after May 1st, every year, a college and university can rescind offers, financial aid offers, invitations to certain programs without notice. And so that's why May 1 is kind of a big deal. Some universities will close at the end of the day, May 1st, and they're done. They're at capacity, they have their class. Some universities you can confirm right through the summer. Here at Maine, just for example, we've had a couple years where we've closed right after May 1 entirely. I can tell you we close our nursing program May 1st every single year, but traditionally students can confirm through the summer. So depending on the school that you're looking at, May 1 might not matter as much, or it might matter more depending on what that school is. But you should have in your mind for your senior year kind of a mental timeline of making a decision, for May 1st. That should be kind of your general frame of reference as you're going through this process. And then formulate your plan, start talking about that, for how we're going to pay for this. Kick over every stone you can for local scholarships. Check in with your college advising office. Any local scholarships, take advantage of that. You may scoff at $1,000. I'm telling you right now, a few $1,000 awards can add up massively when you start stacking those things. The greatest thing you can do, all the students out there, to pay for your college education is to do well academically in high school. So if you need a reason to be motivated to take your studies seriously, literally every day you go to school, you could be paying a portion of your college bill. That's no joke. I can tell you, for instance, at Maine, for Maine residents, we have scholarships that range from $1,000 a year all the way up to full tuition and fees. And what you get offered is going to be determined by your academic coursework that you've done over your 4 years in high school. So, take that very, very seriously. Connect with the financial aid offices. Make sure that you also meet the deadlines for filling out what is known as the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That's what we require, and that's what most schools require for financial documentation to determine your eligibility for financial aid. To give you an idea, for instance, at Maine, we have a deadline of submitting the FAFSA by March 1st of your senior year. Okay. So making sure that you as a family sit down and fill that out and get that submitted on time will be critical in you ensuring that you have the maximum amount of financial aid that a school could offer. So make sure you do that. Some institutions, just to put this out there, may also require what they call the profile. And so that's just another form with a little bit more detailed financial information that they may require to determine financial aid for a student based on their family situation. Typically, you'll see that at private institutions if they require the profile. But those are the two things, FAFSA being absolutely the most common and most used. But I would encourage you, students, take advantage of opportunities to pay as much upfront as you can on your student bill. Whether that's, if you can sit down, in the afternoon every weekend your senior year and spend an hour and a half or 2 hours filling out a college, a scholarship application. If you do that all year long and you snag yourself 12 or 15 grand, you have no idea how much that could help you. If you get a summer job, here's another tip. Don't go buy a snowmobile like maybe I might have done. Use that money during your college experience to support your education, because every dollar you pay up front, you'll be grateful for. You hear horrible stories about student debt and that type of thing. It does not have to be that way at all. But it requires a plan. It requires a little bit of motivation. And so just have a plan and work on those things as you're progressing through college. So in summary, I know I've talked a lot at you. You're doing the right thing now. You really are. Getting information, high level, what are your interests? And then start, exploring online, looking at schools that might be a fit for you. Remember, this is your decision, students. No deadlines, take charge of the process, take your studies seriously, and just have a plan. And I think that it's so important for there to be a communication in this process. This is a big deal for everyone involved, for students and parents. And, I'll just some advice to parents out there. Your child might be interested in pursuing something you don't fully understand. And that can be concerning and challenging. So, but have patience, trust that this is their thing. Let them take charge, let them ask questions. They might make a couple mistakes, be there to help them out. That's part of the educational experience of what this is. To students here, if you're fortunate enough that you have, parents, guardians, whomever who's helping you in this process, that maybe they are asking you too many questions and maybe you're getting annoyed when they're at the college visit asking the 15th thing and you're rolling your eyes. And I'm sure some people out there right now on these screens are looking at each other smirking right now. I just know that is an invaluable resource. And for students, especially if you're going through this with your parents or whomever, I need to give you an analogy. Like the day you were born, for your parents, it's almost as if something essential to their existence, like their heart, is suddenly outside of their body. And as you grow up, they have less and less ability to control that and keep it safe. And now we're at this transaction of talking about you like leaving home now. And so that's what they're working through mentally, emotionally, and that's massive. So just know that their questions and concerns is really all about your well-being. So give them some grace, because I can tell you, if you're fortunate enough to have that, I work with dozens of students every year that wish they had that in their life. So don't get annoyed, don't get frustrated, and communicate, be open and honest with each other. And this process can be very, very smooth. So those are my thoughts, Michelle and Leslie. Happy to take questions or shut up. I've been talking for about 48 minutes. So
No, you've been great. Let me check in with the folks on the call. Does anybody have any questions for Chris before we move on to our next piece? Okay. Chris, you're welcome to stay on if you'd like, or you can go and hang out with your family. We're going to talk about Herman High School specific details now for the senior year.
I'll hang out, and if anyone has a question, I'm happy to answer. But I'll just be back here in the background.
Great, sounds good. All right. So. All right, so we wanted to first talk to the folks on the call about some changes in the office this next year. We are going to be going from 3 counselors to 2 counselors at the high school. And so the breakdown of the alphabet is going to shift a little bit. And Mrs. Walsh and I want to reassure you completely that we are going to communicate with each other if there's a sharing of students or a transition of students. We want to support you all in the best way possible. And we are looking forward to working with you. So for next year, I'm going to have students who have the last name that begin with A through L. And Mrs. Walsh is going to have students whose last name begins with M through Z. And of course, Mrs. Watt, our secretary, will always be there to help support you with any requests you have. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is the SAT update. As Chris had just mentioned, the SAT, I couldn't think of a better way to say it than what he just mentioned, is the wild, wild west. Colleges are not looking at it. Some are, some aren't. Some are requiring it, some aren't. Some will take it, but then they won't use it. It's kind of all over the place right now. And so we still provide the SAT at the high school. And as you know, many of you have already taken it. We did the school day SAT about a month ago. But we just wanted to give you the dates for the SAT. Like there, that's better. And so for the 25-26 year, the dates are August 23rd, September, October, November. You can see the screen that I'm showing you. And the way that you sign up, these are SAT dates that happen outside of Herman High School. We did our school day SAT. If you want to retake the SAT or if you decide that you want to take it for the first time, these are the dates that the College Board has put forth. And the way you register is you go into your College Board account, and there's always this little like rectangle orange square or rectangle orange dot that you can click called register. We can help you with that if you get confused and if you get into that and you can't figure it out, come see us in guidance. But that is the way that you can sign up, and these are the dates that are coming up for the SAT. How does it impact your application? It's really hard to say. Just like Chris had just mentioned, some schools just take it, some don't. If you have a very nice score and you know that your school is a test optional, you may want to consider still submitting it because that may help with application placement as well as scholarships. So I would definitely, if I was sitting in that spot, I would speak to your school counselor about what their thoughts are in regards to submitting that test score. And then we've linked there's a SAT practice. If you are going to be taking the SAT, there is a way to practice for that, and that's through an app that they offer, but then also this College Board website right here.
Mrs. Smith, can I just chime in for a minute on the SAT? I just wanted to make sure students are careful. If you think it's possible that you've created a College Board account, please don't create another one. We've had a few students who have created one maybe when they took the PSAT and wanted their scores, and then they kind of forgot about that, and then they went back in and created another account, and that can mess up where your scores, which account your scores are attached to. So always use the forgot your username or password feature, or call the College Board helpline if you think you cannot access it. Do not make another account.
That's a really good point. And that always matters right before the application deadline and the student is panicking because they do have to send their score. So thank you so much for that, Mrs. Walsh. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Walsh. She's going to talk to you about our next pieces.
All right. So one of the things that we wanted to be sure you all knew is that you will have support throughout each step of the process. Kind of a quick reference or a timeline for seniors for now through the rest of this year into the summer, and then when you first come back to school in the fall. One of the first pieces that we recommend that you start to think about and put into action are asking for your letters of recommendation. Chris did a great job with his description of that piece as well. We really recommend that you consider asking the teachers you want to ask before you leave for summer break, because of that slower summer pace, that tends to be a time when teachers might have more time to really put some thought into a letter for you. We'll talk about this a little bit at the end, but there is a form that we will give you, or we have right outside of guidance on the wall. It's also, there's a copy in the senior folders that are in guidance if you haven't picked yours up yet. And that is a form that you fill out to give to the teachers that you're asking to write you a letter of recommendation that just kind of gives them a little bit of information about you and some background, and what kinds of extracurricular activities have you taken part in, etc. So that's a really good form to get working on. If you are really want to be time conscious and smart about it, if you complete one of those forms but leave the teacher name off of it, you can bring it into the guidance office and ask Mrs. Watt kindly, and she'll make copies of that form for you. So you're only having to fill out one form. Then you can go ahead and write your teachers' names on that form. We also really, really appreciate it when our students give us a copy of that form as well. Even if we're not writing you a letter of recommendation to start, sometimes later on in the process, you might be applying for scholarships. And we really appreciate having that information as well. Please, just a word to the wise, don't assume that somebody's going to write your letter of recommendation and, put that on any application or form until you've asked them if they would be willing to do that for you. One of the forms in the senior folder is just a flyer about the Common Application Workshop. And as Chris mentioned, the Common App is a wonderful free college application accepted at almost 900 different schools. The only fees are whatever the individual schools charge. And we will be holding what's called the Common App Workshop on August 13th. If at all possible, it really, really benefits you to come to that workshop. It's just from 9 to 11 in the air-conditioned library on August 13th. And you will get a huge jump start on your classmates if you come to that workshop. We will go through the application with you, get you started. Both Mrs. Smith and I will be right there to answer questions that you might have as you go through that application. And likely you would get a start of about 80% of your application before you even come back to school in the fall. And that will make your future work in the fall, once you're back dealing with athletics, clubs, academics, it puts you in much better shape that you've already had a good chunk of that done. One tip is we'd really like you to start considering having a beginning to your scholarship search. If you Google free college scholarship search, you're going to come up with a ton of different sites. Really, the main thing is do not pay money for any of those. There are some sites that will promise you scholarship money if you pay a simple $40 fee, for example. Please don't do that. All the scholarships are the same no matter where you search, and there's no top secret stash. So if you want more information on where to look for scholarships, don't be afraid to reach out to your counselor, and we're happy to give you some information on that. One of the next things that happen when you return to school are senior meetings. And so after Add Drop is finished, we will be setting up senior meetings with each one of our seniors where we'll sit down with you one-on-one and we'll talk about which schools you're wanting to apply to, how your Common App is coming along, which teacher letters of recommendation have you asked for and received. I will just do a really thorough check-in on all aspects of the college application process. We'll also share information with you as far as financial aid, additional information about scholarship searching, and just make sure that you really have a good handle on the process and what comes next. So know that that is a big, piece of support that you'll have when you get to the fall after Add Drop. Also, just to kind of give you a little bit of comfort, I know sometimes families that haven't been through this process before. I remember my son, my oldest, he was worried about were colleges going to have deadlines over the summer. Colleges don't have deadlines over the summer. Usually the earliest application deadline is around middle of October at the very earliest. It's much more common to see those in November and December, January. So don't feel like you're falling behind by having that senior meeting in the fall. We'll get to you well before any of your deadlines. But if you do plan to apply to any of those early decision or early action deadlines, it would help for you to let us know that when you get back to school. Send us an email so that we can make sure that you're on our earlier end of senior meetings. All right, Mrs. Smith, if you'll advance the slide, it won't let me do it.
It's being stubborn for me. Hold on for a second.
Sure.
Okay.
There we go. Another flyer that you'll find in the senior folder, and again, if you haven't come to guidance to pick that up, we still have plenty available in the guidance office. You can pick them up at any point. We will be holding a financial aid information night hosted by one of our really good friends from the Finance Authority of Maine, Nikki Vachon. She does a fantastic job of going through the overview of the process of filing for financial aid through the FAFSA. That evening, if you want to mark your calendars now, is on October 7th at 6:30 p.m. Again, we're going with a virtual option. A lot of times that works for students and families, particularly with work schedules, athletic schedules, etc. And it gives us that option to record. But that will go over all the different steps of how to file your FAFSA, and as well, we'll go into some detailed information about scholarship searching. So we really recommend that you attend that virtual evening. It doesn't like us tonight, huh, Mrs. Smith?
Not letting me forward, so I'm just going to have to do this one at a time. Go.
All right. As we mentioned, and again, there's a flyer in your senior folder. That Common Application Workshop is on Wednesday, August 13th, if you want to put that on your calendar now, from 9 to 11 in the library. I will just mention that if you are a senior, if you're a rising senior that's planning to apply to any of Maine's community colleges, they do not utilize the Common App. So if you're only applying to community colleges, the Common App workshop will not help you, and we will cover those pieces during your senior meeting. So please don't worry about that. If you are applying, like a lot of our students do, to some four-year colleges and community colleges as well, then you will likely want to still attend that Common App workshop. Mrs. Smith, you emailed that Google form out already, correct?
I did, and we have 11 students signed up already for the Common App workshop.
So if you are still interested in attending that date and you want to sign up for that, please look for Mrs. Smith's email and you will be able to fill out that Google form and sign up for that. We hope you'll join us. It's kind of fun. It's a different chance to kind of catch up with all of you and see what your summer's been like and really get a head start on that application. And you're all doing it together, so it doesn't feel quite as painful.
And we find that students, when they return to school and we have our senior meetings, they're suddenly surprised by how much of the application they have done. And, differently from when we were kids, we had to fill out paper applications, slap a check on it, and mail it. This is a one-stop shop for most colleges, and you fill it out, a few extra questions for each college, and then blast it out electronically. It's fabulous. So. All right. Anything else, Mrs. Walsh, before we talk about the folder contents?
I can't think of anything.
Okay. So many of you have picked up the senior folder that's in our office, and we wanted to highlight a couple of pieces that we think are especially important. First of all, there is a paper, and we were going to scan these and show them to you electronically, but I don't think our technology is going to work for us. But there is a paper tonight, a paper that's in there called What is this? And so it just is a kind of a guide as to what exactly is in the folder. One of the things that we find to be super important is the student timeline. So we always joke that if we had a dream and we were able to walk into your house, this would be on your refrigerator and there would be check marks every month. But the timeline is really what every senior should be doing monthly, especially if they're planning on going to college. And a lot of this information is general information, but it also has information on there about Hermann specific pieces. And so pay close attention to this and keep an eye on it. We will also be communicating with you through email and social media about the different things that are on this, but we find this to be super helpful. I used this when my own two children were were seniors, and I found it to be helpful, and I was doing the job at the same time. So just a little tip for you. The folder also has what we like to call our parent brag sheet, and it gives a chance for families to talk a little bit about their student, especially because for us, we really like to see the brag sheet, would like to see what parents see and know about their child that maybe we don't. And it gives us also extra information so that if we have to do or need to do a recommendation or a scale or anything like that for a college, we're able to take a look at that and use that information. And it's just a nice piece. And not all parents do it, and that's okay, but we really like it when they come in. And then finally, the other piece of form that's in that folder is the letter of recommendation form. And that is a two-sided form, very important. Mrs. Walsh spoke about photocopying the form and giving copies to teachers, but then also keeping a copy for yourself. Because here's a little tip, the Herman Area Scholarship is designed almost exactly how the letter of recommendation form is designed. And it's just really nice to have that data already there. And then the rest of the folder has our flyer, as Mrs. Walsh mentioned, about our financial aid night, our common application workshop, as well as what is the common application and some other information about early college that many of you already know about. So we've gone over about an hour, and I'm just curious if there are any questions from anybody in the call. Okay. So you guys were kind of our trial group to see how this would work virtually, and we really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much, Chris Richards, for joining us tonight and providing your valuable information about the college application process, and then also UMaine, who are our neighbors, and many of our students attend too. So thank you.
No problem. Happy to anytime.
One of the things that students will want to be looking out for is we will likely be doing an on-the-spot admissions day with UMaine and most likely Husson University. Which, Chris, would you mind speaking at just a minute or two about what the on-the-spots are?
Yeah, so basically, as long as we have the required materials in terms of application, a transcript in hand, even physically in hand, we're going to sit down one-on-one, talk about your application, what we see, what your interests are, with the goal of giving you a face-to-face admissions decision and a potential merit decision right there on the spot. So you could come have a meeting with me, and you may walk out knowing you were admitted to this program with, $2,000, $4,000, $7,000, $9,000 in merit aid, depends on the situation. So that's really the goal.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, thank you again for those who came. We really appreciate it. Please let us know if you have any questions. Mrs. Walsh and I, we want families to reach out and not be wondering at home about things. We definitely want to hear from you. Mrs. Walsh, do you have anything else to add?
I just wanted to remind everybody that we will send the recording of this out to the junior class so that you can have it. So if you have friends that missed this presentation this evening, please let them know that every junior will have this in their email, the link to this in their email, so they can watch it.
Great. Thank you all so much, and have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.